Hello, welcome to Abiding Life Studios. I'm Noah Wells. Today I have with me Steve Reinhard.
Hi, Noah. It's great to be with you.
Great to be with you. It's been a while.
Oh
We,
my gosh, it's been a long time, and it's about time we get back in the saddle here.
yeah, I agree. What's the date for us today?
Today is oh my gosh, today's a famous day. Somebody super famous was born on this day in 1960. That'd be my brother Tom. Today is December 15th, 2020. We're coming to the end of the year of the COVID-19 virus, and hopefully the end of the virus will be here with us shortly.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so you and I've just kind of finished our conversation about we've started a thing here that you and I talked about a long time ago about doing abiding conversations online, and
Mm,
because of the COVID thing, it's kind of been worked out great to do that as a Zoom meeting. And
hmm.
so you and I and a bunch of other folks have been meeting on Zoom, and we'd just like to open that invitation up to anybody else that's listening in the podcast. These are abiding conversations with folks that are learning about abiding life and just kind of going over the basics of what it means to abide in Christ. And if you want to find out more about that, just email Noah and he can send you an invite. It's a Zoom meeting. Um, we break up into small groups to try to get to know one another and discuss what's going on in our lives. And after a short bit of teaching, and then come back together and discuss what we've gotten out of those small groups. So we'd love to have everybody. And Noah, anything you want to add to that?
I just wanted to add, if you do want to email me, it's noahwells7@gmail.com, and I'll send you the link and you guys can join us. It is really fun. I've really enjoyed it every time. I of course get nervous being around a lot of people, new people at first. I'm guessing I'm not alone on that, but then, then we do the whole big group and then we go into the small groups. And the small groups I like probably a lot more because then I feel more free to say something.
Oh,
So I like the way we're doing it right now, but we have been getting some sort of feedback.
yeah, yeah, it's really great to get feedback. Most people have liked the experience that have given us feedback. Maybe there's some that don't, but they haven't told us yet. And then there's some that, like you, um, are kind of feel awkward and nervous with meeting new people. And it's kind of interesting that you said you feel more comfortable in the small groups. Some people feel more uncomfortable
Mm,
in those small groups and awkward and like they don't fit in or they just feel more, I guess maybe the word's vulnerable or being in a smaller group.
mm.
Uh, and because there's maybe safety, we feel a little safer in a bigger group. We don't actually have to say anything if you know, oh
Yeah,
my
that's
gosh, I
true.
might have said something stupid again. Yeah, so
Uh-huh.
anyway, but we have gotten some great feedback, and we kind of wanted to talk about that today, about the thoughts we have after we say something, or we've been in one of these groups, or maybe you've gone to retreats. Our listeners have gone to retreats, or teaching, or um, or you just sat there with your friend, or said something, or did something on social media, and then you have these afterthoughts. Uh,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
you like the afterburners kick in, you start listening to the voice of the enemy, your own thoughts ramp up, and or
Hmm.
maybe somebody says something, or usually most people are pretty kind and don't actually say and tell you when you've done something goofy. So we've had a couple of those this last week, and so maybe we could talk about that. Does that ever happen with you, Noah, where after one of these biting conversations, Zoom meetings, where you've thought, "Oh my gosh, well, whatever."
Yes, that definitely happens with me. I'm definitely, I don't know, I know I'm not unique in that, and I definitely since I'm Mike Wells' son too, I add more pressure to myself, thinking I need to say something. Definitely in a small group, I need to say something really profound. And, I got to be like Mike Wells and say something really smart. And, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we were in a small group and I had this perfect thing to say. And I was like, oh, and in my head, I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect. It's just going to go along with everything. Everything's just going to just mesh in together. Everyone's going to be real impressed. And so then I went to go talk and nothing came out. And
Oh
I was
my,
like, I guess I forgot the word I was going to say. And then, I kind of sat back and then, my wife started talking and everyone else started talking. I don't think they really noticed it, but for myself, I just started hammering myself on what a bonehead I am for one, even trying to say something smart. And two, then I couldn't even say it. It couldn't even come out of my mouth. I completely forgot the word. And so I beat myself up probably for a couple days on that one.
ouch.
Yeah. So I definitely, even Mike Wells' son messes up the words, messes up things, and, you know, beats himself up afterwards of why would I do that? Why would I even? And then think, next time I do it, I'm not even going to say anything because
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm too terrified. What could happen then? I might really say something stupid. So yes, to answer your question, yes. And I think, I do want to bring this up too. I think doers, thinkers, and feelers all do the same thing. I think we all say stuff, and that voice, Satan's voice, gets into our ear, starts
Mm.
hammering us, and then we roll with that of, man, I really disappointed them. I really, why would I even talk? Why should I even go to these meetings? Maybe the
Yeah.
next thing will just say I'm sick or have a migraine,
Yeah, yeah, your body might just give you a migraine so you don't have to show up.
Yeah, so I just don't have to show up at all. So
Yeah,
it is interesting what we all do to ourselves. And I bet if I even asked those people that I was like, they'd probably be like, what are you talking about? We don't remember you doing that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
And I think those are, that's really cool. Thanks for telling us that. I think maybe that's sometimes some of our worst fears, especially speaking in public or in a situation like that where your mind goes blank and you just don't say anything.
yeah.
Uh, it's like, oh my gosh, that's anyway. That's so you mentioned a couple things. One thing that I'd like to ask about, if it's okay, is is there like I mean, I knew and love your dad, Mike, but is there like pressure for you to do you tell yourself, oh my gosh, I need to be like my dad, I need to be like Mike Wells?
Yeah, I think I do that. I definitely did it at the beginning of getting into the ministry, probably more than I do now, even though I probably still do it way more than I should.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like people want me to be like him, pick up where he left off, preach like he did, talk like he did.
Mm.
And for me, that's just I'm I just can't do it anymore. Him and I had different lives growing up. I just I can't be I can't be someone I'm not. It'd be like it'd be like me asking you to be just like me. Like, come on, Steve, just be like me, please, right now. Hurry up.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to do that.
Yeah, what's taking so long? Be like
I'd
me.
I'd be younger.
Yeah. You might not like the joint pain though, but you can try it.
Yeah, well, true. But yeah, I would feel pretty angry actually if somebody told me to, or if you told me to be like you, or if anybody expected me to be like you or your dad. So, and I'd be angry with myself if I was telling myself, oh, I got to be like Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't know if people feel that way with me. I mean, I've had suggestions towards that, that they're waiting for me to start preaching like him,
Mm.
but I don't I don't know how I could because we have the same message, but we just say it differently. So I don't know how I could, and I don't want to be, that might sound bad, but I don't want to be him. I want
Yeah,
to be
that
Noah. I
sounds,
want to be
that
different.
sounds, what's that? I
I want to
interrupt.
be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be him. So, and I loved him to death, but I just want to be me and I want to do the way I do it. So, but it's still the pressure of definitely in the Zoom stuff because I know like all the people in the abiding life stuff just adore my dad. And so, yeah, I think I probably do bring pressure on myself
Mhm.
and I shouldn't because I think they're waiting for me to say something really awesome and profound that my dad would do or maybe not do, Sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he would just talk like you and I talk.
Yeah, I think most of the time that was my experience of him, that he was a normal, average guy.
Yeah.
And uh, like you and me, he walked with the Lord, and uh, that's what I liked about him, actually.
Mhm.
I always, mm, and I think he's not here with us, so can't really speak for him, but I don't think, I never heard him say about you or anybody else, oh my gosh, I wish they were like me.
Mm.
It's like, oh my, his message was like the exact opposite of that. So,
Yeah.
uh, I've nobody's ever told me, oh, I wish Noah was like his dad. Uh,
Mhm.
I I think they would the risk getting their head ripped off because for somebody to tell me that because I love you so just like you are,
Yeah.
and that goes totally against the whole abiding message
Mhm.
of we're accepted in Christ just exactly like we are, not like we need to be any different.
Yeah.
We're accepted, and what's true of him is true of us, just like we are. And whether you're the doer, feeler, believer, or feeler, thinker, or a blend of them, the whole idea behind that is you accept yourself and other people just like they are,
Mhm.
and, not try and push people to be something that they're not. And so, so for me, to hear that you put pressure on yourself to be or talk like your dad, or say something like your dad would say, I feel kind of sad actually hearing that. Uh, but I get it. I think in terms of um, or after our abiding conversations, probably we all do that. Maybe not, like I don't have the pressure. I don't have that pressure to be like your dad, because I think pretty much everybody knows me that would be impossible. And I don't have a Wells name, thankfully, because
Yeah.
I've been Wellsed enough.
Yes,
Uh,
you have.
and and so uh, I think that's, but I have other thoughts. Like you mentioned, I should use my words better, right?
Mhm.
Or I should be able to say something brilliant,
Yes.
or like we had some really good feedback um, from some of our participants on our biting conversations, where they were a little bit nervous about being called on in the big group,
Mm.
and they didn't actually say why, but I think it would be, mm, for me myself, is like I would say, oh my gosh, I'm going to say something stupid, or and maybe even something more. Uh, I would say to myself is I don't want to say something that's going to hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah, exactly, and I used to be like that, and I was sitting here thinking, did I used to be like that, or am I still like that? I'm probably still like that. if I'm in a new group, and I always feel like I probably will get called on at some point, definitely in an abiding life thing, but it kinda it I'm sure for the other people that are saying that, for me, you're focusing on being called on, so then you don't really listen to what's going on, because I've done that many times because I'm trying to go through my head what I'm going to say, and don't mess it up, don't mess it up. And if you do get called on, what are you going to say? And you got to go along with what they're saying. You got to answer the question, right?
Yeah, right on. And
There is a lot of pressure there, I think, for people.
Mhm.
And I know for you, you're not going to call on some stranger or even not a stranger. You're not going to, you do it well in there. You just say if anyone wants to talk. So, I do want to encourage people that you're not going to just call on whoever. I mean, you might ask me what my opinion is on something, but that's about it. You're not going to be calling on somebody just, just find a name on there and call on them.
No, no. And in the small groups, though, I would just want to bring up that what you said so important is that while we're mm, figuring out how we're going to impress somebody, and to be blunt, uh,
Mhm.
while I'm thinking about how am I going to impress somebody in one of those small groups, I'm not really actually listening to the other person.
Yes, exactly.
And I think, one of the questions we had was like, well, what's the purpose of these small groups? And so I would just say, and just like the purpose of these podcasts, is to actually listen to somebody. I
Yeah.
want to hear what the other person's saying, and I want to hear in the big group what somebody's saying. The purpose of us coming together is to connect with one another.
Yeah.
And if I'm listening, if I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to say something brilliant to impress Noah now, or I
Mhm.
got to say something brilliant to impress the listeners,
Yeah.
or even I've got to be helpful to the listeners or helpful to this group. Um, I'm missing out on actually hearing what that person's saying, because in these small groups, people really share their hearts and their souls and their spirit, and you get to see Christ in each one and
Yeah.
hear. And for me, that's the thrill. For me, is like if I just shut up, I don't have to come up with anything
Mhm.
brilliant. I just need to watch and listen and see and hear Jesus in everybody, and he speaks like every time. It's just shocking and
Yeah.
pleasantly thrilling, so I get to be able to hear him. And so, but I think the point you're making is so good. While we're doing that, um, while we're thinking of how we're going to come across brilliant or say something helpful or smart or super abiding, uh, we miss out. And we can miss out. We don't always miss out, but sometimes we miss out on.
Yeah, sometimes we miss out, and isn't it, I don't know, I was just thinking about this, how isn't it, like, so terrifying for us, and maybe in the Christian group, and probably just in every group, of if someone asks you a question, why is it so terrifying to say, "I don't know?" You know, why is that a
Oh my gosh, you're holding my feet to the fire now.
yeah, why is that such a bad answer to say is,
Oh
I
my
guess,
God.
what will you beat yourself up over more? Answering something that makes no sense to people, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to say I know the answer to that question, but I don't know but I'd sure like to know. I think I've told this story before where, uh, I, for a while there, I don't feel the urgency now, but I used to feel like super uncomfortable saying I don't know.
Mhm.
And Barb kind of broke me of that habit because after being married for about 35 years or so, I gave her an answer. She'd ask me a question. I'd always, you know, like your dad, I guess I'm prone to what I would call exaggeration,
Uh,
not necessarily lying, but exaggeration. And
uh-huh.
so Barb would ask me a question, uh, and I would just I don't know the answer. Like she would ask me some historical fact, and I would just make something up.
Yeah.
And and so I just made up an answer. And finally, one day she goes, "You just made that up." And I said, "Yeah, I've been doing it for years." And so then for about 2 years, she didn't believe anything I said.
Oh
And,
yeah,
and she goes, "You're just making that up. I can't trust you. You're just making that up."
yeah,
And I said, "Well, it's just so hard for me to say I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
it's like something deep down inside of me is like saying like an addiction uh,
Uh-huh, exactly.
to be able to say, oh my gosh, I don't know." But so now I practiced it for a couple of years just so Barb would listen to anything I had to say. It's like, how long, like how she wouldn't even like, how long is that, picture frame? It's like, I better go measure it myself because you might make up an answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, yeah, that was kind of a long story to say. I don't
No,
know
it's
the answer
good.
to your question, but I think it's a really important question is why do we have, there's a compulsion, not just in me, I think, but in all of us to be able to say, I know certainly, like when the end of the COVID's going to be, all right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe,
exactly. And even like this last time we did one, Shay was reading the questions and she read one of the questions and I had no idea what she was. I don't understand a lot of things, like a lot of questions and definitely like bigger words. And so she like looked at me waiting for me to say something and I said, What do you think?" Because I really didn't have an answer because it didn't make any sense to me. But then
yeah,
once she talked about it, I was like, "Oh, now I get what the question is." And the same thing with the Bible, when people will read me scripture out of the Bible and go, "Oh, what do you think that means to you?" I don't know, nothing, because I don't understand it.
yeah,
It's not the way I learn.
yeah, that's a
But it is
great
still
point.
a terrifying thing to do because definitely when it's coming out of the Bible, you better, oh man, that really touches my spirit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and maybe that's a good answer to your question. Yeah, maybe answered your question is that it's so important for us to be able to, we want to know what the right answer is, especially, and
Mhm.
be able to, and it's, I mean, I kind of admire anytime someone now tells me I don't know. I really admire. I just admire how genuine and candid they are. And if somebody makes up a great story too, I admire that too because it shows how creative they are. They can be.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and it's I have noticed like if I'm discipling someone on the phone and they ask me a question and I really don't know and God's not giving me anything to say, when I say I don't know is so much better than coming up with something.
Yeah,
When I come up with something, it just doesn't sound even right coming out of my mouth. And then the whole time I'm doing it, my head's going, "What are you doing? This makes no sense." But
yeah,
it is, I don't know. I do think it's interesting that like, if you did get called on in a big group and just saying, "I don't know. I don't know what that means to me." You know,
yeah,
I guess that is a terrifying thing to do because then probably definitely in the Christian group of, "What are you not listening? What that didn't touch your spirit? You gotta
yeah.
do
Well,
something."
yeah. Sometimes we can be kind of judgmental of each other,
Mhm.
but I think most of the time we're more judgmental of ourselves
Yeah.
than we are of each other. Where you would afterwards, if I were to call on you and you said, "Oh, I don't know,"
Mhm.
you might beat yourself up for that for an hour, a minute, or a day, of like, "Oh my gosh, I should have said this, I should have said that,
Yeah, exactly.
I could have said this. I this now I have time to think about it. This verse pops to my mind, and
Yeah.
you know Romans 8 would have fit perfectly there, and that would have now I have got the right answer. But
Mhm.
then my mind went blank,
Yeah.
and so I was talking to a friend of mine the other day just to continue thinking about after we have these conversations and some of the things we think about ourselves. um, one of my friends said, oh my gosh, I'm 42 years old, I should be further along than I am.
Hmm.
i
Wow.
should I should have my act together by now.
Uh-huh.
and just having this conversation, I felt like, leaving. I don't have my act together. Do you ever have that little voice whispered to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I should be doing more for the ministry. I should have it all figured out. Why am I still struggling? Why am I
Yeah,
still dealing with depression?
yeah,
All that stuff I think comes in. I think
yeah,
I think the enemy, like we've talked about before, I think the enemy has such an easy job on us because he can just whisper a couple things to us and move on because I can just completely annihilate myself with the what ifs. And yeah, like, man, I'm 41 years old. I should be way further along. My dad was. I should be way further along. What am I doing here?
yeah,
Instead of just trusting the path that God's got me on.
yeah. And I think, we want to do a podcast about challenging those uh,
Hmm.
crazy voices, because I hear that, and um, I would love to challenge that, just like your dad was further along than you at your age, and I knew your dad, and um, so I would challenge that. I would,
Yeah.
if somebody, if but you probably wouldn't want to listen to me because that belief is so strong.
Yeah,
Um,
like I've cut it into my soul now where I want to believe it.
yeah, yeah, and that, so another one that I would say that um, I could throw at you that would probably be a good one would be, if you're only abiding, you wouldn't have those problems you have.
Yeah.
But then I would want to challenge that is like, well, the whole purpose of abiding is not to not have problems.
Right, exactly.
The whole purpose of abiding is not to not feel depressed.
Yeah.
The purpose of abiding is Christ, and connect with Him in the middle of my problems, in the middle of
Mhm.
however I'm feeling, joy or depression.
Yeah.
Uh, walk with Him in the middle of all those things, and so I think, in some ways we have these lies, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
that we end up believing, and doesn't take much of one. Uh, and and in our abiding conversations, sometimes we'll notice that we're hearing one of those,
Mhm.
and so it would be fun to talk about it. Actually, when somebody, um, when we have one, even in a small group, it'd be kind of fun to be able to say, "Oh my gosh, I just heard the voice of the enemy right here."
Yeah,
Telling
exactly.
what he said was, "Well, I'm such a moron."
Yeah, exactly. What an idiot you are. You should just stop talking.
Yeah, don't say anything else because everybody else will realize it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
Yeah, it is interesting though, and it's for me it's kind of refreshing like the feedback we got back because I know I'm not alone in that. I know that other people feel that way. And so it's like, wow, we all belong together because we all think bad things about ourselves. And we all think, we always go back to that feeling of not good enough. And
yeah,
for me, I like that feedback because it makes me not feel alone. Like little old Noah, other people feel it too. You're not special. Other people are getting hammered too with it.
yeah, yeah, that's so true.
And that's one of the things too, like when that day I couldn't say anything, I kind of sat back and I was like, man, that sucked. And I told God, I said, what was that about? And he goes, just so simple. That was for them. That was for you. That wasn't for me.
Mm.
You were trying to oppress them. That was it. So I'm not going to let you say it. And it just kind of reminded me like he wants me weak all the time.
Mm.
Because when I'm weak, he can work through me so well. And I'm like, okay, all right, I get it. I can't just sit here and try to act like I'm all spiritual. It's I'm gonna come in weak, and then you're gonna speak through me if you want. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes he tells me to just not say a word,
Mm.
and you gotta listen to that, because then when you do say something out of just your own self, it's like, "That wasn't worth it."
It's a good
So I
lesson.
mean so I think it's okay that people don't say anything, and if you don't wanna say something in the small group, then don't say something in the small group.
Yeah, or if you want to say whatever you want.
Yeah,
So
or say whatever you want, say something off topic, who cares? Or say something that you've been dealing with.
yeah, or what I'd love to hear is like when you had that experience of weakness. Oh my gosh, I would have loved to hear that. I would have loved to heard that at that moment.
Mhm.
Of if you could have said, "Hey, just off topic a little bit. I just realized how weak I
Yeah,
am,
yeah,
and I'm actually enjoying it. You know,
yeah,
so that I don't have to be brilliant. There's so much freedom in recognizing our weakness.
yeah,
You know, it's for freedom that Christ set us free, like you just said, that that freedom I think is experienced in our weakness,
yeah,
uh, not in our brilliance. So uh, I think I don't know. I think that just makes so much sense to me what you just said there.
mm. Yeah, and it's I'm not saying I didn't beat myself up over it 2 days later when enemies start saying, "You are still an idiot." Like, "You're terrible with your words. You do realize that." Well, yes, I am terrible with my words. I am an idiot. Run with that for a while, and then you're like, "Wait a minute, who cares?
Yeah,
Let's move on. I already heard from the Lord." It is funny how you still get off track, even when you
yeah,
hear something right from God saying something to you.
yeah. It's easy to get off track and get sidetracked, and uh, that's what I like about the abiding life message.
Mhm.
Was that was different than other messages is that it's not a one-time fix.
Yeah.
Uh, that abiding happens in the moment. It
Mhm.
doesn't happen. Oh my gosh, I swallowed the abiding pill and now I abide forever and
Yeah.
everything is
I'm good to go.
I'm good to go. It's like every moment's a chance to abide and to connect with Christ. And even if I beat myself up for a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months or a couple of years,
Uh-huh.
every moment that I'm doing that, still, like one of the people in our abiding conversation says, my failures are my greatest chance to connect with
Mhm.
Christ in me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. It's not our victories where we typically connect, although sometimes we do.
Yeah,
But
sometimes you do. I mean, I think it'd be fun one of these days to write a book about living the abiding life, and it's gonna be all my failures in it
yeah,
because that's where I've learned so much.
yeah, probably a lot of people could identify with that.
Yeah, and that's why I like telling people, like, God's walking with us, Jesus is walking with you, and it's not all gonna be rainbows and butterflies.
Mm.
There's
Yeah,
gonna be
so
bad things that happen.
yeah, yeah. I think that's So here's a question um, I've heard from a couple counselors last week. Or have you ever had this thought? To maybe we're kind of running out of time, but maybe this would be a good thought for our listeners because a lot of people are listening or counsel and disciple other people. And so if you ever had this thought, Noah, if people really realized what I'm really like, they would never listen to a word I say.
Oh, definitely. Definitely, like, it always seems it's so weird to me that it happens this way. I'll start having, like, turmoil with myself or in the marriage or struggling with something or with the kids, and then God will bring me someone to talk to, and it makes me I always have this voice in my head, "You shouldn't be talking to them. If they knew all the struggles you were going through, what would they listen to you for?"
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I can definitely relate to those other people you've been talking to about that.
yeah. Well, that's one more of those voices where um, we would want to be able to challenge that.
Yeah,
And
you gotta challenge it as we're all screwy. So
Yeah. Or you would go, those my struggles are the very thing that qualify me to talk to that person.
yeah, exactly. Like I'll be talking to someone and they'll mention something and it'll just clue in, oh yeah, I've been through that. Now I can relate and tell them exactly what I did to get through it. Might work for you, it might not. I don't know. We can try it.
Yeah. Or I'm going through it right now. Maybe we can walk through this thing hand in
Yeah, we
hand.
can walk there together. Let's pray together. Let's hang out together. Let's talk
We could,
about it.
right. We can turn to Christ together in
Mhm.
our humanity and humanness. And
Yeah,
anyway,
and
well, I think,
know
I
we're
think
all
we're,
going through it.
yeah, I think we're about out of time here. Um, it's great being with you and uh, walking with the Lord with you. Really love being with you and hearing Christ in you. And
Yeah. We haven't done one in a while, so I've missed it. So we'll start trying to do them regularly again.
yeah, and so for tempters, one of the things we want to talk about is listening to the lies and how you would speak back to some of the lies or whispered to us. And
Hmm.
also another one would be the temptation, a little teaser. We want to do a podcast on temptation of divorce. Um, that sometimes there's a temptation to get divorced.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and we got some good stories that go along with that. So I'm sure the listeners know by now I go off of what God teaches me in my own life. So it'll be some good stories for you guys. It's
yes,
it's not someone I heard or read it in a book. It is something that's happened with us just recently. So I think it'll be a great topic to talk about because I think a lot of people hear that voice.
I think so too.
Yeah,
We'll find out.
we're gonna find out. People might email me and say, "You're an idiot," and that's okay because I'll agree with you. So yeah, thanks for everybody and thanks for listening. And I'm trying to think if we have any other announcements.
I don't know if you want to join in on our abiding conversations on Thursday evenings, Colorado time, Denver time. Send
Yes,
an email.
6 o'clock Denver time, right?
Yep.
And we do it every other Thursday. So this Thursday, let me see if I can actually pull up a calendar. Do you know what it is?
I think it's the 18th.
18th, yeah.
Well, today's the 15th, 16th, 17th, the 17th.
Oh yeah, 17th, yeah.
Mhm.
And Tim's going to be talking about death blows. So
Woohoo.
I think it's going to be great. So yeah, the whoever's speaking talks for 10, 15 minutes and then we break out into groups for 30 minutes, right?
Yep.
Yep. And then we all get together and whoever wants to talk, you can talk. So
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of social time afterwards to reconnect and connect with new folks that we don't really know. So that's really great.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's fun when we can do that when we're all so far apart.
It is. Yeah, people from all around the world come.
Yeah. So it's really fun. And for me, I always feel lonely. So it's nice to get on there. And I don't know, everyone we've done afterwards, after I'm done beating myself up, I feel my spirit feels pretty alive. So it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It's really great to connect with folks.
Hmm. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll do another one very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Noah.